Alright, so we're back in the shop, and what I'm going to be doing now is finishing off this piece here, putting the front on, and hopefully I can put the top piece on, and then I need to put on the braces that are going to go in the front facing down to give me a nice firm surface here on the top. And then if I'm fast enough, I'll go ahead and put the top on as well. So let's see how far we can get. So back over here in this corner, back over here, I need to lift this board up so that it's actually going to be level. So I'm going to use my power jack right here. So the car jack technique seemed to work when I was trying to get the back 2x4 level. So I'm using it here to get these pieces that go in the middle, I'll call them middle studs, level with the front and the back. And then I'll just pre-drill my holes and then put some screws in to fasten this board in place. This is basically the process that I'm going to utilize all the way down this front section. During this part of the project, I found it convenient to use this open crate on my T-stack to hold my drills and also the screws that I was using to install these stud pieces that go on the bench top. At certain times when you're doing a project, you kind of find your little groove and things just kind of work out pretty smoothly when those moments come. And right now I have all these inner studs cut and ready to go, so all I have to do is put the studs in place, make sure they're level, pre-drill my holes, and then insert my screws to fasten them in place. So it's a pretty straightforward action. In a few areas when I drove screws in, it actually caused my studs to shift, so I ended up having to remove the screws, and then I had to utilize a clamp to hold the boards flush with one another, and then I would go back and drive the screws in, and this prevented the shifting. Now that I have that first part of the rung fastened in, I am doing a relative measurement again to cut down the portion that I need for that short section there. And I'm using the Festool Capex 120 to do that. At first I'm cutting my end, and then I'm going back and I'm going to see where I need to mark to be able to cut the other section. Clamps come in very handy in times like this to be able to kind of give you a second or third hand to do what you need to do to make the job go more smoothly. Now with that marked, I'm going to go ahead and take it over to the miter saw and go ahead and get it cut. As you can see today, I have both of the Capexes set up on my large MFT. I was actually planning on going back and forth and doing some cuts on the KS60 and then other cuts on the 120 just to kind of do a comparison back and forth. But I opted against it because I didn't want to add to the time of the project by having to switch the hose back and forth. That's kind of maybe a little bit of a reason to get another dust extractor, or to get a Y connector where I can actually hook up two hoses and run the dust extractor like that. I also need to get another battery for my Festool remote control because it seems to not be activating the dust extractor, so I imagine it's because the battery's low. So I need to open that up and order one of those batteries so I can use that. It still works perfectly fine with the Festool batteries, but the actual remote that's attached to the hose is only working intermittently. So this section here, you can see I have it kind of protruding a little bit further than the rest of the bench, and that is because the rigid shop vac is deeper than all the rest of the tools, and I want that shop vac to be recessed all the way back and to be flush. And so I had to, make a little bit of a design change and have that kind of protrude. I'm glad that I figured that out, because I would have hated to have had that all the way down by the end by the garage door. That would have kind of gone against the idea that I wanted to have by keeping that area flush. When I do pull the car in, there's a refrigerator right there, and this portion of the shelf is actually even with that section. So we'll see how this all works functionally. As I said, this is this is more of a short-term project just to help me to be more productive in the shop. I find a lot of times I'll come out in the shop and get kind of overwhelmed because I can't find tools, or they're buried one under another thing, or whatever tool that I want to use I just can't get to. So right now I'm not trying to make the shop look really good. I'm simply trying to make it a little bit more functional for me so that I can get access to the tools that I want to utilize when I want to utilize them. Some of the elements of a dream shop to me, I would have a section where I could work on my cars and have like a lift for my vehicles and have all of my mechanic tools in a nice, clean, obviously dust-free environment, and to be able to pull a car in and out at will to do things like brake changes, oil changes, and that type of work. At some point in time, I would love to be able to get into even more extensive automotive repairs, such as, maybe working on, like something like a transmission rebuild or an engine rebuild. Those are things that I've talked with my wife about, not because I just want to do everything, but more so because as vehicles get older, it becomes inevitable that they do need to be repaired. And the deeper you can go into that repair, the longer you can give your vehicle, which frees up funds for other areas. So that would be the automotive portion of my shop. I would really love to have a metal fabrication portion of the shop as well, where I've never welded anything, but I would love to get some welding equipment and have a welding table so that I could weld small parts or brackets and such. I just feel like just overall just being able to make and design things is very interesting to me. Right now, obviously, I'm limited by some degree of space, or maybe I'm just limited by not having an engineer's mind to be able to figure out how I could fit everything within my space. I'm still kind of all over the map when it comes to what I want to get done versus what I need to get done. This bench, as I've spoken in the previous video, my wife wanted me to make a little bench so she could come out here and tinker about in the shop on occasion. And this bench was supposed to be a bench for her to do that. But as you can see right here at this stage in the build, it's actually pretty high. My wife's a little bit shorter than I am, and this is not going to be a very useful bench for working or workbench to work at. So it's mainly going to be I may have to come up with some kind of storage solution to set on top of here. I'm not sure, because I also need to be able to get up there on top to be able to get those tools that are at top, unless I created some form of a library ladder that can move out of the way to access those tools on top. So I have to keep thinking about what this actual bench, what purpose it's going to serve other than having a place for the lawnmower, the chipper, and those tools to kind of be tucked out of the way. I am going to try to figure out how to make some doors for this or some kind of covering so that it looks more uniform. And I also have this idea I would like to make, I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but basically the way that you would have like a drop cloth to pull down, it would be on a rolled, you know, like a dowel, a long dowel. I was thinking if I could make one of those things kind of like a bread box, where you have slats of wood and it runs in tracks, but when you roll it up, it kind of rolls up on the end. It would be, I think it would be interesting if I was to close off this whole bench on the bottom so that you didn't see any of the tools, so it looked nice and neat. And then I had some kind of, you know, as I'm envisioning, like a bread box kind of pull down where I can just pull that down, whether it be made of wood or even if it be made of some form of cloth that rolls up, so that all of those tools that are behind me can actually be hidden behind that backdrop. And I think it would be really nice for if I needed to make videos in a garage, it could actually be a nice clean look, and having the ability to lift up, you know, either this bread box idea or whether it be just a simple like a drop cloth that comes in front, I would still have access to all the tools. So these are just ideas that I'm throwing around in my head. So I have a ton of scrap wood in the back of the shop, and I'm just throwing little projects together just to give me some experience with my tools and to try to basically create my own inspiration. So as you see here, I'm putting in some supports. I used a 4x, I think that's a 4x6. I actually bought that for fence repair. I used 2 of them to make that gate that you know, I did a video on that in the it's somewhere on my channel, and I had a 4x6 left over because I was going to fix the back fence in the back, but I didn't, at least right now, I didn't need it, so it was just taking up a lot of room in the back of the garage because it's too tall to stand up. I believe it's like a 10-foot board, so this is going to be perfect for me to utilize it for now as a support for the front of the bench. And then on those other sections, I'm just using scrap 2x4s and just touching them down to the floor. I'll have to come back around and see how I can actually make some form of doors or some coverings for the front of this particular bench. And it's crazy because in this video, obviously, I'm not even finished with the bench, but my mind is thinking of other ways to possibly store these tools. Like, would it be better if I built individual rolling cabinets for each, you know, for the lawnmower and maybe those tools, and so that I can move them out of the way? That would give me the ability to actually drop this whole bench lower so that my wife could use it. And if I stored the lawn equipment in such a way to where maybe it was like a huge rectangular cabinet that would go in front of the garage door when not in use, that was on wheels, I would have to lift the lawnmower to put it in there, but then I could put the weed eater, you know, going probably vertically, and then over top of the lawnmower maybe store like the hedge trimmer and then the blower and those types of things. And I'm not quite sure if there would be room, but it would be nice if I made a cabinet like that I could actually put both of the Ryobi power sprayers in there. The only downfall to that would be the fact that I would actually have to lift everything to put it inside of that a cabinet like that. The good thing would be is if I made it to where there were sections for each tool, then I would be able, they would be put away neatly. I could put doors on the front so that it would be closed away, and I could roll it in front of that garage door that you see on the right and use that as kind of like a backdrop so that I don't have my tools exposed all the time. And if I made it lower than the garage door, then what I could do is when I do lawn work, I could rotate the whole cart around facing it outside the garage, and then I could just open it up and grab my tools out accordingly, do my little work, and then when I put them away, I close it all up and get it out of the way. And as I said, then this bench actually could be dropped down to a more workable height. That's an idea. The other idea I was thinking is, you know, all everything right now is stagnant where it is. If I made a cabinet such as that, but only made it to the height of where it is now, if I put caster wheels on that, it's going to make it substantially higher than what it is even now. So there's lots of ideas that I have for tinkering about in the shop. And, you know, I just enjoy coming up with the ideas and trying things out. And when it doesn't work out, I don't get angry. I don't get frustrated. I simply go back to the drawing board and start thinking of another way to solve that problem. You know, I wouldn't consider myself really, I don't even know if I would classify myself as really as much of a woodworker or, you know, or even maybe a maker. I'm just a person that is always thinking of different ways to do things. And, you know, as I've spoken before, having the desire to fix things around the house is very important to me because I believe it saves me money. And then also things like I have several gaming consoles in my house. And at one point in time, I bought a shelf to house some of those gaming consoles, and I'm not really happy with that shelf anymore. It's kind of got a glass top in a weird shape and design. It's difficult when you have to get behind the cabinet to, you know, finagle with all that and lift it. And I'm like, you know, I should just build a cabinet that has wheels on it so I can roll it out and do what I need to do with that. And then you know, also thinking about custom cabinetry for people that like myself. I own an Xbox, I own a PlayStation, and being able to store those in a way where they get enough air ventilation to breathe, but at the same time they're easily accessible. But then you could create like a uniform backdrop. Now, as you can see here, I did accomplish one of my goals. It is sturdy enough for me to walk on, so that is a mission accomplished. So here I have this sheet of MDF that I'm pulling out. Now, I know this is not best for a tabletop, but when I went to Home Depot a while ago, I bought a piece of MDF for which I wanted to make another MFT top and practice with that parf guide system, because the only one that I made is the MFT that I have down there where the capexes are. And I'm not quite sure why I bought this piece of particle board. I think I just bought it because I wanted to practice working around with it. But then also too, I have had in my mind to buy a vacuum clamp system. And well, not really a vacuum clamp system. I actually had the opportunity to buy the Festool vacuum clamp system. However, I didn't purchase it. They probably had like one left on Amazon, and I was dragging my feet, and of course it sold out, and I didn't realize that it was going away forever. So if I could do it over again, I would have went ahead and made that purchase, but I didn't. And so I did some research, and there is a company that makes vacuum systems for if you're going to use like vinyl veneer and such. And they come in a wide variety of prices. I think the top one that they had was like maybe about $1,500, but then you can get one for as little as maybe $600 or $700. And what you can do with that is, obviously, if you're using a particle board like this, you can actually laminate it, and they have huge bags that can fit a whole sheet of plywood in there. So say if I wanted to put some black laminate on this or whatever color I wanted, I could just put the glue on there, put the actual vinyl on top, slide this whole thing into a vacuum bag, and then use this vacuum pump to seal, or basically, because it puts equal pressure on the whole vinyl top. And obviously that gives you a lot of flexibility in the shop, because a lot of furniture that you're buying from IKEA is nothing more than this particle board or MDF with that veneer cover. So if you go to the lower level and you decide to buy yourself a vacuum pump, then you can actually recreate that quote inexpensive furniture, but you can make it custom for yourself. So like if you have a funky space that you need to put something in, like, you know, as I was telling you, this floor here is sloped going from the left side of the screen to the right. And since it is sloped, if you just bought a basic cabinet and set it in there, it would set at that slope unless you did something to kind of level it out. But if you built custom cabinets, then you could, you know, build them level, right? So whenever you're looking at buying a store-bought solution versus a custom solution, you have to deal with those nuances. Like at one point in time, I was thinking about maybe I should just get a whole bunch of pack out drawers or something like that and store my tools in those. And then, you know, you have, you know, supreme portability. But then when you start talking about having a level workspace, you won't have that because of the slope of the floor, right? So these are all, as I said, first world problems for a guy with a shop in his garage. But these are things that are always, you know, going through my mind. Sometimes I don't even know what project to start because I want to build me like one of those regular kind of heavy workbenches where you can actually use a hand plane and build one of those, build vices and stuff on there. Not because I necessarily want to be that kind of woodworker, but because when you do need something to be held stable, the MFT I have right now with the wheels doesn't serve that purpose. So I wouldn't want to build a big one, but I think one of the names of them are called like a Rubio bench. If I may have that wrong, but basically I don't want to build one so extravagant. I would just make it all out of 2x lumber. I seen a couple YouTube creators that made benches like that, where you would do all the glue ups and laminate in 2x4s, or you can use 2x6s, and then you can, you know, finish the top. And, you know, I'll think about these millions of different projects, but then I'll be like, oh, but I don't have this, or I don't have that. And that's, you know, leads to my tool acquisition portion of this channel. But it kind of works out because lots of people are interested in some of the tools that I've purchased, and if I share, whether it be an unboxing or a, you know, a first impression of a tool, then people can get information just like I got information from other people. They're just getting it from a different person or whatever. I don't claim to be a professional or to know these tools totally in and out. I'm simply, you know, sharing my experience as a novice. And over time, I mean, one day maybe I won't be able to call myself a novice anymore, but for right now, that is the case. And you know, I know a lot of people can be very territorial of this, you know, whether you call it maker or woodworking space. And so sometimes people don't have the nicest things to say. Those things don't really faze me or affect me in any way. Because, you know, I don't know, they just don't. It's just not something that really bothers me. Or there have been a couple times where I may have gotten a comment and I tried to respond back to the person, and the conversation just kind of went in a direction that I just really don't want to be associated with. So now I just don't even entertain that stuff when people like maybe go into the chat or into the comments and say, you know, unnecessarily mean things. It's not hurt my feelings. I don't care because it doesn't pay my bills. It doesn't stop me from paying my bills. So it really doesn't matter to me. I really don't care about what another person's opinion is. But at the same time, I also know that I enjoy watching other people on YouTube, whether it be build things or, you know, tell their experience with a new piece of tool or technology, so that I can kind of identify what I like or don't like. Now, I kind of kept talking here and I bypassed the part where I actually made a mistake. So you can see here that the wood didn't fit. And the reason for that is because obviously you saw me before trace underneath the bottom. But then when I put it down and I cut it across the short portion all the way down instead of, I should have cut it from the long portion down. So at this point, I just turned into I become a butcher, and I just start to, you know, piecemeal the rest of this top together. Because essentially, before I even got to making the top, I was kind of tired. I'm not even gonna lie, I was tired, and I probably should have went ahead and took a break. But I also saw the finish line in sight, so I went ahead and pushed myself, and as a result, I ended up messing up this top. But I'm glad it's just a piece of, you know, like $30, $40 particle board, and not a piece of, you know, $90 plywood. So there's that. So I'm using my Milwaukee jigsaw here. I wanted to pull out my Festool jigsaw to try it out because I don't have a lot of experience with the barrel grip jigsaw. But I realized I'd have to pull it out of one of the sustainers, and it was buried down up under the other ones, and I would have to load the blade and, you know, get familiar with it and reacclimate myself to it. And I have a lot more experience using this one. And at this time in the project, after I've already kind of messed up the top, I just want to get this done at this point in time. So, you know, obviously this is not turning out the way that I wanted it to turn out, but it is going to serve the purpose that I needed to serve. And regardless of the quality of it, what I did get in this project is some experience. So all of that is going to work out to my benefit in the long run. I would encourage anyone that has decided to go on a journey like this, you know, don't get discouraged because you mess up, or because, and if you decide to do something like YouTube, like I'm doing here, don't be afraid to show your failings. I mean, you know, we're all human. Some people make things look very easy because they have a lot of experience, or they're doing a lot of editing, and that's fine too. To each his own. Because I'm tackling both, you know, video production and this woodworking at the same time, it, you know, I can only split myself so many different ways, but I'm really trying hard to spread myself as thin as possible. You know, for those of you that aren't familiar with this channel, haven't watched it, I do work a 40-hour job in healthcare, and so I don't get a lot of time to do these projects. But when I do, I try to hit it hard, and sometimes I may go a week or more without being able to get in the shop, simply because I have other responsibilities and stuff that I need to tend to. But by connecting, me doing a YouTube channel, and I also have a blog, which I need to get back on getting that going. It's actually not doing too well right now because all of the links to my videos have been broken. So I need to go back and tinker around and get that together. And honestly, I think my blog is probably just going to be things that I write up. I don't know if I'm going to actually put any videos on it. We'll see. But, you know, a little side story, I actually was not going to do YouTube. I wanted to do just do my blog, and I actually was paying for a service called Vimeo, where I think it costs like $1,000 a year, and so all your videos that you make would be hosted on your site, and people wouldn't be able to have access to your videos on YouTube. And that was because I was a bit not really apprehensive. I just wasn't a big fan of the process that I understood of. Basically, you know, I had to go 2 years of pro bono before I got monetized here on YouTube. Whereas if I would have built this out on my blog with Vimeo, it would have cost me more money out of pocket up front, because I'd have to pay that $1,000 a year. But if you have a blog and you're able to, you know, drive traffic to your blog, that can make you a little bit of income there. Whereas with YouTube, it's more, we're very fortunate to have a platform like YouTube where you can just upload videos for free, but you add value to YouTube by putting your content up, and they can actually put advertisements and make money. But for, like in the case of my particular channel, taking 2 years to get monetized means that YouTube, they can put ads and video and commercials, whatever, on all of my videos, and they would get 100% of the money. Now, you don't really make a lot of money on AdSense. At least I don't see a lot of money. It's very, very a very, very small amount, especially if you consider that in relationship to what I have invested in regards to tools and that type of thing. However, I think what helps me to continue to kind of press forward and continue is because my ultimate mission is really not YouTube. My ultimate mission is, like, I'm not trying to start a company building. I mean, it would be nice to be able to get to the point to where I could make like maybe a little dresser, a little coffee table, maybe make some, furniture or something like that. And then maybe someone, potentially may be interested in purchasing something like that. But that's not going to be like a full-time occupation for me. I'm very contented in the field that I'm in right now. But I do feel like learning these skills puts me in a unique position to develop other streams of income, but also to have a skill that I can actually pass on to my daughters, where they don't actually have to go into a secondary education. Not that I do want them to go to secondary education, but more so, I wish that when I was younger, that everything that you see me doing here, that I would have learned that when I was, a teenager or younger, because then I would be so much more advanced now. That's both with the automotive, that's with the woodworking, that's with everything. I would be in a lot better position had someone sat me down and taught me these things. Fortunately, I did go to college, I did finish, and I did get a degree that was that has been very useful and been a blessing to both me and my family. But now I realize, when you just work a regular job, and you're not like, say, a doctor, a lawyer, or somebody that's a extremely high earner, you really do have to pick and choose what you're going to invest your money in and what you're going to do. Many years ago when I was living in Oakland and we were renting a house in Oakland, and we were paying someone to do the lawn, and they was charging us a few $100, maybe 100 and something, under $200, but they was charging us some money every month to do the lawn. And I wouldn't even say that they did any kind of really extravagant job, which for a small amount of money you shouldn't expect much. But what I did is I sat down and I thought it through, and that was when I bought my Ego mower. I was like, well, if I go ahead and spend $500 on a mower and get me a little weed trimmer and all of this stuff and do it myself, if I'm paying, let's say I'm paying $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year, because in California grass grows all year round, so you're getting that maintenance pretty much year round. Well, if I spend $500 in one season and volunteer my own labor once or twice a week, well, I save myself $700 in the first year alone. And the year after that, as long as that equipment is still running, i.e. that lawnmower that you see there to my right, I've had that for 7-8 years or something. It's been a long time. And I still I think the original battery finally gave up the ghost, but I do have a lot of batteries for my older tools, and I'm still using the exact same lawnmower. And so if you take that $1,200 expense and multiply that times 7, 8, 9 years, you're talking about close to 10 grand that would have been going out to a person that manages your lawn. And you can't, in some cases, you can't always pay for good service. Sometimes you can, but to find anyone that's skilled in what they do and that has a high degree of integrity and they really take pride in their work, that's not as easy to find these days. You can pay somebody that has the title of professional, but they may not actually behave professionally. So, when I go to my job and I earn my salary, I really want to know that when I spend my money with someone, that I'm getting the very best that I can afford to get, right? And if I end up coming to the conclusion that I can get a better job or do a better job myself if I put in the sweat equity, well, I think that's a better outcome than me essentially continuing to throw money away when because it's difficult. It is very difficult to find people that are very good at what they do and also reasonable. Sometimes people that are very good at what they do, they're very, very expensive. And in here in America, a lot of us, we live on debt. People borrowing money and and using credit cards and putting themselves underwater. And earlier in my life, I've made poor financial decisions regarding credit and the like, and I've learned my lesson. So I am not a debt carrier. If I can't buy something cash, now we're not talking about houses, we're not big expenses like that. But even for me, a car, I would rather buy a car for cash than pay a payment on a car, because a car is a depreciate. Even a house is a depreciating asset. People, in our country, we try to sell off the idea that a house is an asset. It's not an asset unless you're renting it to someone. It's not an asset unless you're selling it. And if you're selling it and you don't have somewhere else to go, you're homeless. So when you live in a home, and I just happened to come across this video on YouTube where they was talking about the way we build homes in the United States, the stick frame homes. Basically, and this is kind of crazy to think about, a house, if left sitting, it will not last 30 years. So we have 30-year mortgages that, and by having 30 and 40-year mortgages, that allows the price of the home to go up high. We have this thing called the amortization calculator, which means that you pay, especially if you have poor credit, you pay 20, for the first 20 years, you're paying nothing but interest, or mainly interest. And so you don't really get to paying that home down until you get that back stretch of the 10 years. So that being said, there are many, many people that have life events over the course of 20 years, whether it be the death of a loved one, maybe some kind of disability, a job loss, whatever. Anything can happen and occur. And so when you look at a mortgage, it is really a gamble that you will get to the end. Because even your job and your employment, it may not be 100% guaranteed for forever. And so, prices of things don't stay the same. Everything in the world is always in flux. And so I've always, because of my financial failings in the past, that is one of the reasons why I've adopted this, DIY mindset, because I realized, the more things I can do for myself, the more independent I can be, and the more I can kind of control the outcomes that go on. Like I've had a few people that have made comments, on my channel. Some of them like maybe professionals, or at least that's what they say, that they may have been in the industry for several years, and they offer, opinions about, whether it be my tool buying or, different things that I'm doing, or they, let me know that I'm a terrible woodworker, which is all fine. It's free country. Anybody can say anything they want at any time. But where I grew up here in the United States, which is not in California where I'm currently at, there were not a lot of people that are doing what I'm doing now, or even had the opportunity from the areas that I came from. So I didn't get that exposure at a young age, and as a result, what I found is when you do try to enter into this field, you get some pushback. You get people that have opinions that their opinions are based upon their world view and how they see things, but they're not necessarily putting themselves in the shoes of another person. Like I can't go to, like, say if I went to a country that they would consider a third world country, and I'm used to all the amenities that are available here in a country of what they call a first world country like the United States. I can't hold a person that comes from a third world country, or a person that comes from a totally different background, to the same standard. And I think sometimes when we make comments and we say things, we're saying things from that avenue, from that angle, that like, well, I would do it like this. Well, let's look at your, where you came from, what you were exposed to, what you were given, you know, what resources were available to you, you know. And then also too, you know, if you're a person, maybe you want to do a particular thing and there's no one that is willing to support you. There's no one that is willing to really help you. Like, I was in Home Depot one day and this guy walked up to me and he just looked at the 2x4s that I had on my little cart, and he looked down and he pointed at one of them, and it had the actual what do you call it, the part of the core of the tree, and it had a curve in it. And he says, you don't want to get those 2x4s because those are the ones that are going to warp the most. I didn't know that. I genuinely didn't know that. And so I thanked him for, you know, the information that he gave me. And it's like, you know, meeting people like that is very rare. It's very rare. Most people are highly competitive, and if they feel like you're getting ahead of them, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to attack you. They're going to attack you. They're going to criticize you. They're going to try to put you down, you know. But, you know, I'm from America. I'm going to keep it real. You know, we used to say something as a little childhood saying, where's that statement, what is it? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And that's, you know, like, I'm not going to allow any form of social media to tear me down in how I see life and how I see things. That doesn't mean I'm not open to new ideas and, you know, people that are offering constructive criticism that's going to help me to do better. But if, like, say if someone was born with a silver spoon in their mouth and they're trying to advise me on something, I'm probably going to let that information go in one ear and out the other, because if I grew up in a different way and came from a different background, it ain't relatable. I don't even consider it. I just, you know, thank you for watching the video, and keep it pushing. Anyways, guys, you see, I got the end of this bench. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out, but I'm going to wrap this video up here, and I will see you when I start my next project. You can see here, it doesn't look terrible here, but as I said, I want to put some kind of doors or blockage on the bottom. And you know, yeah, we'll see what it looks like. Now here I'm going to show you a closer look at the top, and you can see how imperfect it is. You know, as you see, because I had to put in an extra piece on that top there to the left, and then you'll see here where I had to put in another extra piece there, and then I have a gap here, and that's simply because when I made that cut earlier in the video, I I was tired and I wasn't paying attention, and I just made a bad cut. But I was determined. I had this piece of particle board in the shop, and I was going to use it. So that's what I did. So it's a patchwork bench. Most workbenches are meant to be used and abused, and you know, I feel good about the project. You know, it's not perfect. It's not great. It's not going to win me any awards, but I do have a flat surface. And to be quite honest, right now you see it, it's as clean as it is probably going to be, because it's full of stuff right now. Already, everything is already migrated to that top shelf. So anyways, guys, when I make iterations on this and build other projects, I will be sure to make videos and share them with you. Thanks for taking time to watch the video, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care.